How are you, my dear Silvertree seeds? This is in our Silvertree here, and I welcome you to Runes of Silvertree channel, and I'm so grateful that you're here. May this message find you well. So today I'm going to talk about the last of the wounds, okay? Part of the forgiveness series, and it is ignorance. Forgiving ignorance. Ignorance to me is very, very much close to the energy of innocence. When you don't know something you don't know, how can you know what you don't know? There's no way to know if you don't know something. You have to, it's like you have to learn that, oh, I didn't know that. You have to experiment, you have to evolve, you have to experience. That's the only way to become knowledgeable, to become aware of something that you didn't know beforehand. So, what does this mean when I say wound, the wound of ignorance? Sometimes we're hurt by, just someone not being aware, someone not knowing something about us. When I'll use this, we harm other people all the time without meaning to, really. There are people who intentionally cause harm to other people because they're hurting, but nine chances out of 10, most people don't go out of their way to cause harm and upset. So I will say, for example, customer service is by far it's a great example, because most people it's a very quick interaction with other human beings, with complete strangers. And so it's not a sit down, get to know you type of customer service. I'm talking about restaurants and hotels and, other places where they offer service, and it's just a very quick exchange. You don't have that time to get to know them. They don't get to know you. Everything is very superficial. And your first impression of that person is how their body language, how they speak to you, their attitude. And and sometimes it's just very neutral. Hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. Okay, have a good day. And you may never know. You're ignorant to the fact that that person's spouse or child is sick, or they just lost their job. There are people who are so good at wearing that mask to seem normal when everything is falling apart for them in their personal life. And then you have people who just wear everything on their sleeve. They're miserable, and they want people to know how miserable they are. And they usually won't tell you what's going on in their life because they're embarrassed, or they have shame. They're ashamed of it. Or they have such a deep-seated anger that they don't feel like it's appropriate. It's not socially appropriate to go to a complete stranger and tell them why you are in a pissed-off mood. They just are. And so you are the person on the receiving end, whether you're the customer or you're the cashier, okay? And they're just kind of in a crappy mood, and they're very disrespectful, but you don't know that, or you're ignorant of the fact that they have an ailing spouse or child, or everything is falling apart on their path. So, sometimes the things that we're ignorant of can cause deep harm, and it's a wide spectrum. I don't know why I'm feeling this, but religion. When you grow up in a very strict religious home, and you're told there's a lot of no's, okay? And I am speaking from personal experience. There's a lot of no's. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. You must do this, you must do this. Like, everything is very, very strict and restrictive. You're not asked to explore your sensuality. You're not asked to explore your thought or critical thinking. You're told to follow the rules. And this can create a very ignorant space to where you live in a paradigm where everything is so fixed and so incredibly manipulated in a way where you you're told anything outside of it is wrong. Okay? And when you get a chance to break out of that, or you evolve, or you break out of that paradigm, and you're exposed to the world of critical thinking, free thought, and sensual expression of the spirit and life itself, it can be quite painful of realizing how ignorant you are of the world. And, you know, many people have left their faith or their religious path because of this, because you're raised and taught in a paradigm to not explore to begin with. You're told to not expand. You're told to only embrace what you're being told and to not question. I mean, we see this now in the liberal world. We see it, you know, and it's so interesting because in the 50 years ago, 60 years ago, in the 1960s, you had, I'll use this example, in the 1950s, you had this constriction. Everything was so constricted, you know, you had very designated roles for everything. And then in the 1960s, they were like, screw that, and just poof. And when you have a society like that, I mean, just imagine a household, but when you have a whole society where things are just so regimented and so controlled and so restricted and so, when you, man, and here's the thing, anything, and I wrote this down, whatever you are chasing after is running away from you. And whatever you are running away from is chasing after you. My mentor told me that the other day. We had a discussion about happiness. He said, stop chasing it. Right? And I'm like, no, I just want to be happy. And he's like, yeah, I know. Everyone wants to be happy, but the key is to find the happiness within the present moment, not outside yourself. You know, and if you're running away from being happy, because there are people who are like that, surprisingly, but if you're running away from being happy, then happiness will always chase after you too. And you're like, and happiness is like, no, come back. There are people who are afraid. So it goes both ways. But back to the subject of this expanding and contracting, and, you know, expanding and contracting. I'm thinking of the mother energy, that womb. The womb energy is, of course, powerful, very powerful. That womb energy just expands, contracts, and you can see it in our society, you know, and technology isn't helping with that. Now everyone thinks they know everything because we have the ability to tap into information in such a way that we think we know. We think we know. We don't feel it. And there's a big difference when it comes to ignorance. You can say, well, I read such and such article. You can say, I watched such and such video. You can say, I made a video, blah, 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 blah. I did this, I did that. I watched this person. I became friends with this person through this platform, blah, blah, blah. But you can still be ignorant. Why? Because it's knowing. To gain knowledge of something, okay, to gain knowledge of something means nothing. It means that you're actively collecting information. But to develop knowing is a form of experience. You have integrated, hopefully, you've integrated the experience. You became, you felt, your mind, your heart, and the body and spirit were all in one. That is knowing, where you become the experience. You can say, well, this is, I know this because I experienced it. It's much harder to speak from a place of just gathering knowledge. oh yeah, I know. I'm like, no, you don't. There's a big difference. And so you have millions of people walking around saying that they know, and they're expressing all this information about the things that were collected from someone else who collected from someone else who collected the information. But you're still ignorant. You're still ignorant of it. So tying this into forgiveness, tying this back into the intelligence of the heart, okay? Because there is an intelligence of the heart, that is the knowing, right? And so, and I know this might sound a little confusing, but it's forgiving someone's ignorance of something that they don't know about you is probably incredibly, it ties into judgment, and it ties into tolerance and patience. These are things that people have a lot of. We don't allow ourselves the space to experience that when we're practicing forgiving ignorance of others. It's a pride thing. Like some people don't want to confess that they don't know something. I heard the other day, I was watching a video of a person saying that, well, narcissists don't like to say that they don't know. They don't like to admit that they don't know something. They want to be the all-knowing. Like, I know this. And it really takes a very, very, to me, if I had, like, for example, a spiritual teacher, I ask them a question and they legit say, I don't have the answer to that, or I don't know about that, I have a lot more respect for that than someone who says continuously, I have the answer. Why don't you do this? I have the answer. So to admit to yourself that you're ignorant of something, okay, and to forgive yourself for being ignorant and causing harm to another person is very, very powerful and humbling. It's okay to practice humbleness. Ignorance will do that. Ignorance is a teacher of grounding, to be quite honest. Ignorance will humble you and will ground you into reality. Like sometimes these celebrities will get on social media and they'll go off at the mouth and say something they have no effing clue about, and they end up offending millions of people. And they have to go online, to save face and apologize for their ignorance, but I'm talking about, really, just because someone's moving their mouth and saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, doesn't mean anything. It really, it means something, but then it doesn't mean anything because it's something that is felt, like you have to feel the forgiveness. You have to allow yourself to feel. You can do forgiveness all the time. You can buy a card, get roses. You can say, please forgive me, ask for forgiveness 1,000,000 times, or say that you forgive someone 1,000,000 times, but it's the art of forgiveness is feeling it. The magic of forgiveness is feeling it, like I was mentioning earlier this week. And sometimes you're just not ready. Sometimes you're not ready to forgive someone. And that is okay. Giving yourself permission to forgive when you see fit is powerful. Don't ever feel anyone who pressures you like, oh, you should have forgave him after so much or such a long time, or you should have forgave her after so long and after such a long time. No, that's not forgiveness. That's called pressure. That's called ego and wanting to speed up the process of healing. Don't do that. So this video is not going to be super long. I hope I didn't venture off too much on the topic, but ignorance, forgiving ignorance, because people get annoyed. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. What do you mean you didn't know? We You know, and sometimes we don't even believe people when they say, no, I swear to God, I didn't know. What do you mean you didn't know? How is it possible you didn't know that? And I know, and it's harder to believe that because we live in the age of Aquarius, where everyone has access to information and knowledge, which I think is very powerful and freeing. But at the same time, I'll go into that in another video because there's a huge topic I really want to get into, but I just started getting into this and I don't want to block myself. I definitely have a really big a big project I really want to put out and share with whoever's watching my material. So thank you so much for listening. And again, with ignorance, be patient and practice non-judgment, because that's the thing. We judge each other superficially. We judge ourselves superficially, and we judge our external world superficially. You know, we judge a guy who's walking down the street, looks like he hasn't bathed in weeks, and we know nothing about that person, and we judge them. You know, it's our nature, you know, because I think it's actually judging comes from a primitive nature because it saved us. You know, judging things isn't always a negative thing. It can save you a lot of trouble. But it's about how you use these things. How do you use judgment? How do you use ignorance to understand the world, to understand the world? How do you use blame and shame and guilt? How do you use these things to understand your world? That's what it all leads down to. Understanding. So I will leave you now. If you're interested in a private rune reading, please send me a message on my website at www.silvertreesounds.com. Also, and all rune readings are donation based. I'm not going to charge you $300 to tell you about yourself. That's not how I roll. I'm sorry. Like, we all need cash, okay? We all need the cash, right? We live in a monetary system, but that's not in my heart. It's not my calling to do that to people, because the people who need it the most can't afford that. So give me what you can if you feel called to. Also, check out my Saturday playlist on my second channel, Sounds of Silvertree. Beautiful, wonderful music to help you during your energy and spiritual practice. It really helps create the mood. I'm diving deeper into my more ethereal style of music, because you're going to see all different types of I have things from jazz, piano jazz stuff to, you know, experimental, technical, or electronic music. But I really want to focus more into my own authentic way of expressing my soul. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And if you do feel called and you feel a connection with me, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.